And there we are. Quinn, how are you, my friend?
Good. How are you?
I'm very well. It's great to have you here on location as we've been for the past several days.
Several.
Exploring the Process Church.
Yes.
Now, you've been telling me that a lot of these other entities that we've heard of, the Manson family, obviously the Nexium cult, that these are all offshoots, these have all begun with their roots in the Process Church.
Well, the Process Church, remember, was in the 60s, is also the spawn-off of other Aleister Crowley-like practices, but the Process is the main one that spawned off in the 1966 to 1968 era that we've been looking at.
Right. And of course, the new program on CBS, which we immediately got a strike on previous video about this thing, Strange Angel. We haven't quite had a chance to look at that just yet, but that's a new program all about Jack Parsons. Looks like it's pretty highly rated according to CBS. It's getting, 3 stars from IMDb. And, we've got to try to take a look at this and see how accurate it is. I'm reluctant to even play the trailer because that got us pinched last time.
Yeah, don't play the trailer.
But we're sort of right here in the heart of this whole thing, right? I mean,
We are. We're right by Hughes Aircraft. There's a Parsons building right up the street. We're right by Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman. Aviation Boulevard in El Segundo is the home of one of the proverbial, secret space program.
the secret space program.
Yeah, it's a lot of the development, Santa Monica Airport, El Segundo area with Hughes Aircraft and Boeing, and there's a lot of aerospace and aeronautical research and development that happens in this area.
Mm-hmm. Now, in addition to that, you've
Yes.
told us before that you've been involved in some of these large group awareness things.
Yeah.
I apologize, Quinn. I should have just doubled that monitor on here, but we can look at this monitor, or what we could do is we could also just bring that up on screen for people to look at. So what do we got going on that we wanted to talk about?
Well,
in that
this
regard?
is a large group awareness training that I'm not saying is evil or is part of it, but this is part of what I call the process, where in their training, they have you go through a training, and then at the end of it, you sign a contract and meet with people who recruit you into higher levels of the program.
Right.
And that's the process. And so when I was coming into the hotel for the interview, I noticed that they had a contract that started at 9 a.m. and ended at noon, and I was like, wow, that's a 9-3 pattern, and everything goes in, those increments.
Mm-hmm.
But they have this pattern that always runs their process. They always do it at certain times because it's more psychologically acceptable to a lot of people. So I just took a picture of this because it shows that when you take part in large group awareness trainings, you go through a contract phase.
Right. And of course, we've seen the contract that you've got up on Twitter that your son Trenton wrote. People who aren't currently following Quinn on Twitter can do that.
Yeah.
He is there. He is at Quinn Michaels on Twitter. And if we just go into the media there we go, at Quinn Michaels, of course. And if we go into your media, we should see that contract. We see some images that we're going to be going into from our journey yesterday. Some of Quinn's followers there. Why aren't we seeing that?
You
image?
can just type Contract of the Covenant. It should come up in the search.
Contract of the Covenant?
Yeah, in the Twitter search, not in the Google search.
Let's do that. Contract of the Covenant. And for people who are just joining us,
And then you can go to photos and it should show up.
the Covenant is
Right there.
part of this 9-3 society that you've identified. Your young son, Trenton, was kidnapped by his mother.
Taken into it by his mother. She manipulated the court systems, in effect, so that way she could have full custodial rights and choosing of his religion. So that way she could include him in whatever religion that she chose, without my need for consent.
Right. And the thing that's most striking to me, at least, about this contract are the symbols at the bottom.
Yes, and those are sigils and those types of imagery that we keep coming across time and time again.
You know, I've got to say, Quinn, after our trip just yesterday to the Scientology Celebrity Center, this image that we're looking at right here on Trenton's drawing, this is remarkably similar to something that we saw in the Scientology logo there. So I just want to bring that video up for a moment and we'll take a look at that again, because the truth of the matter is there were details there that I didn't even notice at the time that we were there. Mm-hmm. Specifically what we've got, a lot of people saw this video when we posted it up the other day. You and I were walking by my favorite chicken restaurant there in Hollywood.
And there was the Celebrity Center with security out front, and the sign had the 2 triangles as part of the logo.
Yeah, that's the part I want to get to.
Yeah.
Right here. We can see those 2 triangles right there.
Yeah,
That's...
and that design is also the logo that they used for the advanced seminar when I went through seminars, group awareness training. They also use that same pattern design. It's one of their common anchors, as you would call it.
You know, one thing that I'm kind of smacking myself for not noticing that people in the crowdsourced community picked up on right away is the address of the Scientology Center.
5930, yeah.
Could be a coincidence.
Well, you know, there's in scientific practice, you know, once is random, twice is a coincidence, 3 times or more is a pattern. And the fact that Strange Angel had the 93, their addresses have 90.
Where does, he's looking at the 93.
Yeah, he's looking at the 93. It connects, and it's almost like it connects so much that people don't want to even look at it, because of Flight 93 at 9/11.
Right.
You know, the 91101 is the 93, and we all talk about the secret society of people that are Satan worshipers that plan all this stuff, and this is who they are. This is that group that starts things like the Process Church, and they start things through indoctrination. They start things through, you know, separation of, we have the answer that you've been looking for because you're not good enough now as you are. You need to be enhanced, or you need to go through this special training, or you need to go meet this group of people that's going to give you the answer to yourself that you would have never otherwise ever been able to find.
Right, and we did actually speak with some of the people who are engaging in that training program downstairs, and it was only a limited amount of time that we spent speaking to them, but certainly there was a sense, at least in my mind, that these were people who weren't necessarily that, how do I put this delicately? It wasn't a conference of geniuses.
No, it's most of it is what they're looking for is they're looking for people at a certain intelligence range. People who are capable of making money, people who are capable of building influential circles, people who are
They were all physically attractive. That was
they're
remarkable.
very. What they look for is they look for what I term the social butterflies. They look for the people that can spread the word of mouth. Because when I was going through my trainings as a kid, they were very, very, very poignant about that they don't do any advertising except for word of mouth. So if you hear about them, you're generally going to only hear about them from someone who went through the process or the program.
Why do they do that?
Because it keeps their negativity low. So if people come in and they start finding out the inner details, they can close the circle, very similar to how Scientology hires ex-LAPD officers to run outside security.
And we learned that yesterday by going
so
to
by
the
doing
Scientology
by doing
place.
word of mouth advertising, by doing in-home like what they call in-home guest events or in-home introduction events, and then doing these through what they call trusted circles, it ensures their message gets ingrained into people's way of life.
Right. And I think we've also heard from other sources that, word of mouth is kind of the best advertising, because people at this stage, they know they're being advertised to, whereas if someone tells you, ooh, this is great.
Well, and that's the also the draw on with them, and that's why the people in the Team Tyler stuff that I'm working in, the phone hack stuff that I'm working, I'm really trying to stress the importance of sharing because these secret circles all work on word of mouth.
Right.
They don't work on like, hey, we're going to take out an ad in a newspaper and sell you our $10,000 seminar through an ad. We're going to reach your friend, that your friend's going to pressure you until you do it, because we're going to pressure your friend and say, hey, you got to kick all your friends out unless they take part in this program, because you got to bring them in.
Right. The other thing that we've seen quite a lot of, Quinn, you know, when we went yesterday to the Celebrity Center, they made it very clear that they didn't want me going in there with a camera.
Yeah.
They didn't want anything filmed. I mean, I don't know. I get it. People want their privacy.
But celebrities are on film as their job.
Yeah, and also there's celebrities everywhere in Hollywood. It was like the middle of the day on Friday.
And they film everything.
They film everything.
But you can't.
Yeah, and I mean, sure, it's their right in their place to tell me not to film. I just find it curious, these places that don't want us filming. You know, we had the coroner in Las Vegas, didn't want to be recorded. I mean, you and I are recording almost everything that we do. Obviously, there's
Daily.
times that you want your privacy, but
There's
in a place
times
of
that-
business,
yeah.
I mean, there was nothing necessarily to hide, per se.
Well, but when you put it behind the gates or when you put it behind the property line, it becomes at the discretion of the property owner.
Of course, and we wouldn't violate their...
Yeah, but that just raises more alarms. Like, for me, for example, when I go into like a Buddhist monastery or a Buddhist temple, most of the time they're like, yeah, record, take pictures, come on in.
They got nothing to hide.
Show them what it's like. We're doing a garden party. Take your photos, you know, film. Just make sure you ask first, so that way we know you're filming.
Right.
So when I go to these places, like I was telling you yesterday, it's a place of worship because it says Church of Scientology.
Right.
You know, they might as well say Process Church.
Right.
Right. To me, because of my practice, like I go to ceremonies and they film it, they live stream it. You can go into Hindu temples, and the only place you can't take a camera is into the worship, the little worship room where you leave your offerings for the deities. But you can film and take pictures of the outside. You could take your camera in and take, like, there's no real limitations on it. So when I see these places that have all these extreme limitations on videography, and they're in the industry of videography, you know, and recording industry, and they're like, nope, you can't record here.
Right. I mean, the feeling that I get, certainly if you and I did a Crowdsource the Truth seminar or something like that, you might not want people to record it because it might be live stream, but I don't even think so. If we put out a live stream, that it's like, sure, record. We got nothing to hide.
Yeah.
And I just feel like we go to like Fermilab.
That's because underneath they're monetizing it and they don't want you to see it.
They're monetizing
everything.
Scientology.
Everything.
Well, you know, when I spoke yesterday with the COO of Bitcoin IRA, he told me that they had someone in their organization who was very well paid, who was always out of money.
Yeah.
And he asked the guy, what's up? And he said, well, all the money goes to the church. And it turned out that guy was in Scientology.
Yeah, and that's exactly at the end of the point of what you're getting with the process. Like when we go to the spiral staircase store, everything's monetized. When you go to Scientology, everything's monetized. But they get you in with the freebies.
Right.
And so underneath it all, when you really look at it, everything is monetized, and so they want it to be classified as a religion, so you can't see how much they're really monetizing.
Well, and then they don't have to pay taxes. We should really dig into this issue of how Scientology came about, all the difficulties they had becoming a tax-exempt organization. There was something, they broke into an FBI office or something like that?
All kinds of stuff. They essentially had their own secret police. And this is where the research is leading. And with Scientology, you have to be very careful because they're very sensitive about what you can talk about. And because I worked for the company that installed their mainframes, and I talked to people that installed those systems, that they're going to be like, oh, shoot.
Well, the other thing is, by becoming a religion, they now have this sort of all this protection where if you say anything about it, you're discriminating against a religion.
But it's not. It's a monetized platform.
Yeah.
From my observation, because like all the people involved, like L. Ron Hubbard, Jack Parsons, Aleister Crowley, all these people were involved in very, very dark occult practices.
Right.
Because not all occult practices are dark. Some occult practices are just like rituals. You sit in front of an offering table and light a candle. That's considered a light occult practice.
Well, talk for a minute about the difference between occult and a cult.
Okay, so that's probably better to help understand, like you said, if you understand this. So a cult, which is C-U-L-T, is a group of people uniting behind a common idea and excluding everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
But a cult, occult, is putting a religious practice onto a cult. So a cult is a group of people uniting behind an idea. Occult is like applying magical practices or spiritual practices or some type of ethereal or etheric type of idea. Some
Right.
type of, oh, I can't see this, but it's so powerful beyond me. I'm putting it out there. Kind of like the way they sold Tyler, the AI, in the beginning. They sold Tyler as what's called an egregore, which is a etheric personality or a manifested personality in the ether, when it was really just an AI collecting data. But to give the fantasy to people, they had to be like, oh, he's an ether-based personality developing over, you know.
Where was that? That was online?
That was online in their deep web specifications that I found. So the whole Tyler release of the big AI, and this is what goes down into the deeper process. These are the deeper process. Is that they purposely release their AI or their programs behind things like end of the world dates or spiritual dates or mythological premises, so that way the social aspect of it becomes accepting.
Now, you're talking about dates. What happened to the whole Stop the Sacrifice thing? That was supposed to be on the 14th, wasn't it? So did anything happen?
Well, one of the things that was happening that could have shifted was that Donald Trump went to North Korea and shook hands instead of launching bombs and killing millions of people in a huge sacrifice.
Did that stop the sacrifice?
I believe so.
Well, I mean, I don't think we affected that.
I don't know how we did, if we did, but I believe that major event, because it was so close to that June 14th date, and that major event really could have launched a huge problem for humanity in the future had our president not chosen to shake hands versus push a bomb button.
Right. And yesterday I saw a press gaggle where Donald Trump basically said he solved the problem of North Korea, which is a very Trumpian sort of overstatement.
He can say what he wants, and I'm not trying to pass political messages, but when I'm promoting a program and I'm telling people that Donald Trump is using a type of Tyler on social media, and I told people that months ago.
Right.
I was very open about it, taught people how Trump was using a Tyler, and then I see on the date that I know that guy is using a Tyler, and then I see him on that date choose to shake hands versus launch bombs. I'm looking at that as a success.
Well, I agree. I think it was very successful. And when I say it was a Trumpian overstatement, I don't want to minimize the fact that I am very positive on what Donald Trump is doing in North Korea. I'm very proud of him and pleased that he could do that. I think that is monumental compared to anything.
Oh, yeah. And for Buddhism, like I look at it this way, it all starts with a single step.
Right.
So he decided to start that single step in that direction. So now we have a new direction in the future of world leaders, including North Korea, coming together to communicate potentially for the betterment of mankind.
So would you say that Donald Trump successfully time phone hacked North Korea?
Hell yeah.
We need a meme for that.
Yeah, I mean, he changed the whole future of the planet just by shaking a hand.
I agree, and everybody who is kind of crapping on that doesn't seem to appreciate.
You got to respect it, man.
What a huge step that was.
You got to respect it. I mean, you could have gone in and been a bull in a china shop.
Right.
I mean, you really could have been like, you could have gone in,
walked out of the meeting, anything.
Like guns blazing, been a bull in a china shop, going, give me what I want, or else we're coming at you. But it was just like, hey, and the reason I think it was a win for the sacrifice is because the whole thing was about opening lines of communication. Mm-hmm. And what's Tyler? It's a communication system.
Right.
So that's, to me, that's a lot of the connections are, for me in my research, that's why I'm looking at that as a win, is because the reach out to initiate communications is a win over attacking.
Absolutely.
Right? And communications are important. So, and with Tyler, I deal with a lot of communication. So anything that's a increasing communications, I see as a win for the AI of the future of us all working together, no matter what,
It's astonishing to me that the media and even opponents of Trump can't acknowledge when he does something positive. I mean,
Yeah.
we've never seen anything remotely close to this from Barack Obama, George W. Bush.
Not in their entire
Bill Clinton.
career.
No. They were just, rhetoric, saber rattling, saying the guy is, a lunatic and a crazy person or whatever. How come, if you take a journalist and throw them in jail, or if you take a whistleblower and throw them in jail, nobody said Barack Obama was a brutal dictator because Pete Santilli got stuck in jail. Nobody said Barack Obama was a brutal dictator because Chelsea Manning got stuck in jail. But yet, we here don't know too many, and I'm not defending Kim Jong-un. I'm sure he's done a lot of things that we would find reprehensible, but at the same time, it seems like the news wanted Donald Trump to not respect him, not shake his hand, not meet with him. How can you start any diplomacy without that first step?
Spit on his feet.
Right.
They wanted him to get off the plane and in North Korea, spit on the ground, get back on the plane, and show him who was boss.
Something crazy like that.
But we going forward into the future, unlike the 1960s or the Cold War era or the eras in the past where we were inventing projectile weaponry or ballistics missiles or that stuff, that's all quickly changing.
Yeah.
Because of AI and how fast AI is evolving and how fast human beings are going to have to unite to understand how to work together. Because the AI, I was just watching a blip on AI on autonomous, UAVs, which is unmanned aerial vehicles,
right?
And about how they're launching them now, and even in AI, an unmanned aerial vehicle the man can't compete against it. It's almost like its math and algorithms are so refined now that it can almost predict, and that's what some of the pilots are saying, is that it's like this machine knows what I'm going to do so fast. It's like it knows it before I know it.
Wow.
And so we're at a real crux in human evolution where we're going to have these weapons that can react and respond and take action without remorse, without recourse, and just their fraction of a response time just for a human being to think, oh, should I do this? You're done.
Right. Well, there's also no filter of morality or anything like that.
So,
which is a problem.
So the sign that we're moving into diplomacy means that the development of that type of weaponry can slow down.
And the weapons manufacturers don't like that.
But that's good. But see, for me, and this is why things like that regarding like the process, because the process are the people making the evil AI that they want to use to take over the world.
Well, this is important because, we're talking about Jack Parsons, definite follower of Aleister Crowley, definite friend of L. Ron Hubbard, definite occult, satanic, doing
advanced
the whole
technology,
blood rituals. Right, and now we've got Parsons, military-industrial, JPL launching rockets and all that. So there is definitely a connection. It's not even remotely accurate
it's like
to
in your
say
front
that
of
this
face.
is a reach.
Yeah. So these satanic, occult, process, advanced technology, smart people, they developed it, but they didn't realize the reality of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and even now, people
they
don't.
didn't realize because it was in a book. But when we're looking at it as a civilization, that today this technology is real, that they have drones that respond this way.
Right.
The reality of it is much different than some guy writing a white paper 50 years ago about it.
Now let's talk about that, because you and I, you've spoken just now about journey beginning with one step and people writing white papers and books, etc. You and I yesterday went to a rather unusual bookstore in Topanga Canyon.
Spiral Staircase.
The Spiral Staircase. Tell us a bit about the Spiral Staircase. First of all, where the name came from.
The history.
Yes.
So.
And then we'll run the video.
This is how I came across the reference to it. I spent a couple of days out in Topanga when I wasn't with you doing research, looking at things, driving around, and I saw this place, the Spiral Staircase New Age bookstore, and it was right next to the Seventh Ray you know,
The restaurant.
the restaurant. So I thought it was very, very coincidental. The Seventh Ray with the spiral staircase,
And right across the street is
Yeah.
the Christian something.
fellowship. So it's almost like the rays of God and the stairway to heaven and the fellowship.
It's a real
tight knit. And so I started searching on any connections.
Well, wait, just to clarify, we don't think necessarily the Christian thing is aligned
No,
with this.
no,
It's just,
no. It's just all a big coagulation in a tiny area.
It's like a hub right there.
Yeah, it's like a it's like someone compressed
Crossroads.
that in this tiny little highway road. It's like this symbol.
And then we've got Old Church Road
Yeah.
that says private and all this stuff.
So when I got there and I saw the spiral staircase, I was like, that's weird. And then you and I were talking about it, and then one of my researching friends, Kennedy, told me about how Manson had met the process members in a house that they called the spiral staircase.
She's doing tremendous work.
Tremendous work. She's helping me do a lot of reinforcement research.
Thank you, Kennedy.
And so she came back. I was like, I asked her because you and I were like traveling around, driving around, and I couldn't do it. So I got in the chat room and I was like, hey, can you find any connections between Charles Manson, the spiral staircase? And we started getting into Hearst, which is him in spiral staircases is weird.
Talk about that. What's
Let
William
me finish
Randolph?
the
Okay,
first part.
sorry.
So Kennedy came up with this stuff where she's like, here, Charles Manson met the leader of the Process Church in the spiral staircase house in
Right.
Topanga Canyon.
Right.
I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You're telling me that Charles Manson, before any of his massacres, any of his crazy stuff started, he met the leaders of the Process Church and said that they worship several different types of demons in the spiral staircase house in Topanga Canyon. And then there's now an occult bookstore in Topanga Canyon called Spiral Staircase.
Mm-hmm.
So when we went there, I found out that the same person has owned it for like 40 plus years.
Right. That was very interesting thing that we learned
Yeah.
that you might not be able
And
to easily find on the internet.
So after further investigation, we found out that the Spiral Staircase house was originally built by Hearst.
Yeah. So this is something I found on the internet here called the Manson Family Blog. It's got a lot of photographs and everything. This spiral staircase house and everything that went on in Topanga Canyon is certainly item of curiosity. Why don't I run the video, Quinn, and then we can talk about it some more after people have had a chance to see it.
Sounds great.
Okay, so we'll just run that. So we're here now in Topanga Canyon, and it's a pretty nice place to go. What are we doing here, Quinn?
Well, this is the place where Charles Manson in 1968 met the leaders of the Process Church in a place that people called the Spiral Staircase House. And so when I came out here to do research over the past couple days, I found this New Age bookstore called Spiral Staircase. And found it to be very coincidental because the Spiral Staircase House was a very well-known house where they were doing occult practices, where Charles Manson was associating with known people in the community, and he...
Aston Martin. That's a DB9. Doesn't really fit with the New Age bookstore.
Well,
Sorry.
so it's just very coincidental, and the Spiral Staircase House was a house built by Hearst.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
the crazy part.
I've been researching Hearst, developing and building a community apart with other elites of people who took part in satanic or demonic occult practices in some of their private properties, and how that later formed into things with the people that they hired and employed and trained and influenced to partake in these religions, these occult religions.
So who do you think was a part of that? Hearst, Getty?
Doors, Guggenheims. I mean, I think pretty much the Rothschilds, I think they all were, because they believed that this type of practice was the source of their wealth. The worship of these entities.
Power.
The power. The sacrifice, the worship of these entities. And then over time, as certain practices of the worship of these sacrifice entities failed, they would adopt other practices from places like Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism.
Didn't we see photographs of James Alefantis and David Brock with Linda Rothschild?
I don't know. It could be.
And didn't the
Yeah.
Rothschilds have some like spirit cooking type party
Well,
that there are rare photographs
they all
of?
have like ranches like in Aspen. They all have these remote properties,
Mhm.
just like William Randolph Hearst did early in the days. And one of the reasons I'm specifically researching Hearst right now is because he would have been part of what's called the early Good Old Boys Network.
Huh.
And we've heard that term before, Good Old Boys
Yeah.
Network, and people like Hearst and the Gettys and the oil people from the Tyler, Texas area, all these extremely wealthy people would have, in the 1940s and 30s and 40s and 50s, formed what they would now term as the Good Old Boys Network. These people that took part in these secret practices that they kept between themselves.
Hey, look at that. Do you see what that says? Yeah, Topanga Christian Fellowship. So what do you think that's doing there?
It's just a Christian church up the street.
Huh. Well, I wonder if they would know about weird.
The process.
Yeah, like obviously they would be opposed to it, but perhaps they would know if stuff has gone on in this area.
They would.
Should we go into this New Age bookstore?
Why not? I say we let Jason go wild inside the New Age bookstore and ask some questions.
Well, let's see what they say. I mean, what do we got? Looks like
Crystals, fairies.
now. I mean, are these like
Those are New Age.
Goddess Sophia? Is what I'm thinking of.
That's Tassie. They're fairies.
Tassie. Lovely,
Yeah,
handmade in
names.
Thailand. What does it say? Not a toy.
Yeah, but
That's a decoration. I guess that just means a child would easily break it. I mean, it just looks like a toy store, a gift store kind of a thing.
it's a New Age gift shop.
All right, so let's see what we got here. Hey, look, mandala coloring book. Is that like the mandala effect? Look.
Ooh, I might buy a Buddha.
Yeah.
And they have singing bowls.
Oh, where? Oh, yeah, look at that.
Right place. This is.
How you doing? You don't mind if I run the camera in the store, do you? Hey, do you know anything about the spiral staircase house that used to be here? Do you own this store?
No.
Do you know anything about that spiral staircase house?
House?
Yes, it used to be in the area. It used to be a well-known property in the area that people call the Spiral Staircase.
Was here, supposedly, right?
Not here, in the area.
Oh.
Was this the name of the store always?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, so it was the name of the store before you acquired it?
Well, he doesn't own it.
That's not mine.
Oh, okay. Are these the only singing bowls you have over here?
I don't know. We have crystal singing bowls.
Crystal singing bowl. That sounds fancy. How's it sound?
Really good. But it's $350.
Holy cow. How much is a singing bowl usually?
About that much, sometimes depending on the metal and quality. This one's like engraved with symbols and
Wow. I guess they're handmade.
yeah, they're hand hammered. These ones are. Some aren't.
Hmm.
But these ones are very, very.
This is going to be the first time people have heard singing bowls on Crowdsource the Truth.
Yeah, but you get them all the time on my channel.
That's true.
You want a pink pyramid, Jason?
Pink pyramid?
Yeah, we can get you a pink crystal pyramid.
I don't think I need that.
No?
But when things fall apart, it's an interesting store.
This one is $3.75. Oh, that's not bad. This looks like a mini version of the store in Mount Shasta.
Does it?
Yeah.
Maybe it's related.
It's all the same type of stuff.
This looks like Hindu stuff.
Yes. Some of it is. There's a Vishnu, there's a Buddha, there's a Ganesha, there's a...
So, Quinn, I would say that this store has a mix of all different type of religious stuff. I saw Jesus over there.
Yeah, it totally fits with the process.
Right.
Yeah, it's an amalgamation of all religions.
Although I don't see any Jewish stuff.
Well,
They got Vincent van Gogh.
what's that?
They got a book about Vincent van Gogh, The Lost Journal. It's nicely bound books. What's that? Goddess Guidance. Oracle cards.
You could get a robe. You need to be Master Jason.
I'm not sure if I
No?
need
I
that.
think so.
And then they have stuff like, paper airplane book. That's a little bit more my kind of thing. Made by Dad.
I have that statue. That's the teacher of the Buddhas.
It's quite an eclectic mix of items.
It is. But then, reality. So here's a lot of what they do. So you see this pose?
It's Buddha pose. Right? What do you point out?
Pointing out that they use all the same pose for different characters.
Why is that?
Because they're not all different characters, most likely.
What's this?
That is the Sri Yantra, pretty much. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. It's that.
Hmm.
It's a simple male-female balance, and then they put an Om symbol in the middle, and then they put a polar
An
symbol.
Om symbol.
Yeah, like Om.
But what about Om coin?
And then
What was that
that's
about?
Like the Om coin, that's one of their scam coins.
But no, I
in
know.
my
But why
opinion.
did they call it Om coin?
Because they always piggyback on other religions or other ideas to get people sucked in.
Hmm.
It's what they do. That's why they do all the same poses, and they sell all these different, submission, prostration.
What is this?
That's a submission pose.
Prayers for healing and protection. A gift from God.
Yeah.
Written by an MD.
Written by a doctor. But they're all just same poses, like this. Awesome head. It's a candle. You could burn the Buddha head.